Shootings in the Bronx have spiked recently, and somehow a year's end report released by the New York City Police Department shows a decrease in homicides 1 month before the year ends. Now, authorities project the year will end with fewer homicides than last year. There have been 312 homicides as of Thursday, which is less than the 325 from last year around the same time. And if the current trends of shootings in the Bronx continues, police say the reported numbers just may increase. Here to tell us more about their organization and what they're doing to stop gun violence, we welcome now the program director of Bronx Rises Against Gun Violence, also known as B.R.A.G, David Kaba, and good to have you back.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
Good. So when you see these numbers, what do you say?
Well, interesting. I actually saw that report, and part of the report showed that there's actually an increase in the Bronx. In fact, the per capita number is almost double the number for New York alone. A lot of that has to do with the iron pipeline. If you know anything about the iron pipeline, it's just the illegal trafficking of guns that come up the I-95. And it starts in Pennsylvania, Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, and all the way down to Florida. So New York has the toughest gun laws in basically the country. However, 74% of the guns used illegally in this city come from out of the state. So that is a direct result of the increased gunfire that you see in the Bronx.
So when you talk about your organization, knowing this, dealing with this, and seeing this rise with shootings, how are you dealing?
So our model is a three-pronged process. It's a evidence-based model that came out of Chicago, and it basically does three things. It targets the high-risk youth, those individuals that are involved in the shooting, usually 16 to 24-year-olds. It changes their mindsets. We use evidence-based practices to get them to resolve conflicts in a peaceful manner, along with wraparound services for them, jobs, training, employment. And the last piece is to mobilize the community against the violence. We use a public health approach. We basically identify violence as a contagion. It acts like a disease, and it needs to be stopped.
And so when you talk about violence as a disease, you're talking about giving public awareness, making people aware that this is going on. What's been the response that you've had with community people? Because there are a lot of people who are very engaged, but then there are also a lot of people who say, listen, you know what, I'm just not really dealing and saying too much about it. What's been your response with the public?
It's been a tough road. Changing community norms is not an easy thing. Changing the way that you think, getting them to buy in. So the biggest factor that we have going for us is the hiring of credible messengers. We use individuals who are from these communities, who actually used to be involved in this high-risk activity, did some damage, decided they wanted to change their life around. And through the help of the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, they get trained, educated, and taught, and then deployed into these communities. So now we have full buy-in, where in one of our programs, we have 38 participants who are doing well and moving forward towards education, employment. And the other one, we have about 30, and we only started in February there. Our shooting results are extraordinary. We have no shootings in B.R.A.G West since February, and in B.R.A.G North, we haven't had any shootings since January.
Since January?
Since January.
So that means pretty much all year.
We're coming up on a year, yes, we're coming up on a year.
How does that make you feel?
It makes us feel great. The community, the clergy, the store owners, the business developments, the community centers, they come out whenever there has been a shooting and support us in rejecting that shooting, taking the message out to everyone. And so they can see that the youth are starting to come to our programs and believing in what we do. And slowly but surely, it's been decades since they think shooting is normal. It's going to take some time to get that to really change.
Right, because amongst those who are shooters, it's almost a mentality that this is normal behavior. And unfortunately, sometimes within the very own communities that these things occur in, the belief is to see shots fired, to see police sirens, to see police, coming through. It's a normal thing. But then for those people on the outside, it's always the message that this is not normal.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time where the shootings happen, no one calls the police precinct. They see someone on the floor bleeding, they pay no attention to it. What we have done in these communities, and one of them is on Bronxwood between 222nd and 227th. The other one's right here on 183rd to Fordham. That's our West Division. And they have bought into it in a major way, where now that catchment area, that hot zone, which is one of the hottest parts of the 46th and the 47th precinct, is cool, it's peaceful, it's serene. And our information is all over, we're posted everywhere, because we do a public education drive where we put out information to all the community stakeholders, basically giving the message that the violence needs to be stopped and rejected.
We talked a little bit earlier about police-community relations, especially with in the wake of the Deborah Danner shooting. That you know, a lot has to be done to really restore, build those police-community relations. Talk about your experience with police-community relations in regards to these shootings, because you got to have some sort of buy-in from the community in order to inform police that this is what's going on or this is what's happening in the neighborhood. And we know that people are not always, they're reluctant, if you will, to sometimes want to be able to share that information when it comes to with law enforcement.
Yeah, so I have to give a lot of credit to Commander Rivera and Commander Stevenson in the 46th and 47th precincts respectively, because one of the initial things that we did, myself and my colleagues at Good Shepherd Services, the parent agency of B.R.A.G, we do a lot of work in communities. We see what can be and help those families and youth and children. So when we met with them, they actually welcomed us in and provided us with a lot of information about the area we were going into. In fact, telling us that we were in the worst part of their impact zones, and they clearly understood that it was a one-way information system where they give us information, but we can't give them, because the youth that we work with are going to see us as possible CIs, you know, snitches and those kind of things, and we can't have that. Our credible messengers can't afford that. So it's my job as a director to work closely with the commanders, and it's my team's job to be in the community and work with the youth, and then I connect with my team the information, and we utilize that along with what we already know from the neighborhood to bring the violence down.
Because honestly, we know that if violence is ever going to stop in the community, it's going to take the community. We want the police to come in and police the community, but the reality is the community is who sets the tone. The community is who really sets the standard for how things are going to happen. Do you think that people are really getting that message now? They
are, and the clergy is a big part in helping us. The community-based organizations in the area that we serve is a big part in helping us, because they allow us to put our information, large posters that drive the message home, that drive the message on the level to the youth, to the families, to the community. So without the community, you have nothing. We are the community. And by the way, the NYPD, the precincts, are part of the community as well.
So 2017 is around the corner, and we got a few seconds left, but tell us, what do you have coming up on tap in 2017?
So we do monthly events in all our communities, and we basically use the built-in calendar. So right now it's obviously Christmas time, but in 2017 we're doing things for Three Kings Day to stay cultural, West Indian affairs up in the northern part of the Bronx, and of course we got Valentine's Day coming around there. So we do things like love instead of shoot.
Okay. Well, looking forward to hearing what's going on. David Cobb, Program Director at Bronx Rises Against Gun Violence, better known as B.R.A.G, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Obviously, a lot of good work, no shootings in those particular areas, and hopefully it can spread borough-wide, and we'll continue to see some great increase.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
David Cobb. Listen, Oprah will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in a few.